The vanishing runner of Pine Crest Track. The quiet track at dusk. The Pine Crest High track sat behind the school like a forgotten loop of cracked red rubber. Most kids avoided it after dark, but Ryan Malone, a 20-year-old former track star, used it to clear his head. He showed up at dusk on a calm September evening, the air cool enough to sting his lungs with every breath. The place felt unusually empty. No passing cars. No voices. Just the wind brushing against the chain-link fence. He stretched, trying to ignore the strange pressure in the air, like someone standing behind him. When he looked over his shoulder, no one was there. At least, not that he could see. As he stepped into lane 3, a single stadium light flickered on by itself. It shouldn't have. The power box was locked. Ryan hesitated, but the need to outrun his thoughts pushed him forward. The truth was, he should have walked away right then. The first sign something was wrong. Ryan's warm-up laps felt normal at first, but on his third lap he heard a soft pat-pat-pat behind him. At first he thought it was his own footfall echoing. Then the rhythm changed, faster than his stride. He slowed, and the sound slowed too. He sped up, and it grew louder, closing in. Ryan spun around, expecting another runner, maybe a late-night athlete like himself. The track was empty. But the sound didn't stop. It circled him, moving fast, like invisible feet sprinting around the oval. His throat tightened. He walked toward the bleachers, trying to convince himself it was just animals under the stands. But then the dust on lane 1 shifted, like something unseen brushing through it. Ryan backed up. The stadium light flickered again, brighter this time, buzzing like a trapped insect. The pattering stopped suddenly, leaving the air too quiet. Ryan whispered, "Hello?" Something answered by tapping twice on the metal bleachers. The fear begins to build. Ryan's heartbeat pounded in his ears as he stepped away from the bleachers. He told himself it had to be some kid messing around, but Pine Crest was a small town. People didn't wander school grounds at night. A cold gust swept across the field, colder than the night air should have been, almost icy. For a second he thought he saw a shape dart across lane 6, low and fast. He blinked hard, convinced he imagined it. He tried to leave, but the gate he had entered through swung shut on its own. The screech of metal echoed across the field. He jogged toward it and grabbed the chain-link frame. It refused to budge. When he stepped back, something ran across the grass behind him. Its footsteps were too heavy to be from an animal. Ryan turned slowly. Nothing there. But the smell of damp earth and cold sweat drifted through the air, like someone had just sprinted past him. Isolation and doubt tightened around him. He moved to the center of the field where he could see every direction. His breath fogged as if the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Ryan rubbed his arms, trying to steady himself. He had raced in pressure-packed meets, but nothing ever made him feel this off balance. He pulled out his phone. No service. The screen glowed weakly, then dimmed as if something drained its power. His mind spiraled. Maybe he was pushing himself too hard. Maybe the stress and darkness were messing with him. But he couldn't explain the footprints that appeared behind him in the track dust. Fresh prints. Deep ones. They formed one by one, moving toward him like an invisible runner closing distance. Ryan stumbled back, tripping over a sprinkler head. When he hit the turf, he heard breathing. Slow and steady. Right above him. But nothing blocked the sky. Just empty night, and a presence he could feel but not see. The threat finally shows itself. Ryan sprinted toward the far side of the track, desperate to find any exit. His legs burned the way they used to during competitions, but now he wasn't running for a medal. He was running from something that had no footsteps yet shook the ground with every stride. The invisible runner chased him, its breath sharp and ragged near his ear. He glanced back, and for the first time, he saw a shimmer in the air, like heat waves forming the outline of a human figure gaining on him. Ryan cut across the field toward a break in the fence near the maintenance shed. The figure shifted, suddenly appearing ahead of him instead of behind, as if it blinked through space. Its outline sharpened for a moment, revealing long limbs and a head tilted unnaturally to the side. Ryan skidded to a stop. The ground vibrated. The thing stepped closer, its shape flickering in and out like a glitch. The ending that haunts. Ryan turned and sprinted toward the only place left, the bleachers. He dove under them, crawling through the metal supports. The air felt heavier there. Colder. He heard the creature's footsteps slow to a calm jog, circling the structure as if amused. Ryan held his breath, pressing himself against the dirt. Then everything went silent. No wind. No creature. Only his heartbeat. Ryan eased forward to peek out. Nothing stood outside. But the dust near the track showed fresh prints leaving the field. He emerged slowly, scanning the quiet night. When he looked down, he froze. A second set of prints walked directly beside his own. Same stride. Same depth. As if something invisible had been pacing him the entire time. Ryan backed away, but the stadium lights snapped off all at once, drowning him in darkness. His voice cracked as he whispered for help. The last thing he heard was the sound of his own footsteps continuing without him. The locker room thing at Redwood Arena. The calm before the game turned strange. Redwood Arena always felt cold, even in summer, but on Friday nights the place came alive with the sound of sneakers squeaking and crowds yelling. Evan Brooks, a 23-year-old semi-pro basketball player, arrived early for his team's late-night practice. The arena was empty, lights humming softly overhead. He liked the quiet. It helped him focus. As he walked through the hallway toward the locker room, he noticed the air felt heavier than usual. The smell was off too, like damp concrete mixed with something metallic. Evan pushed the feeling aside and opened the locker room door. The room was silent, benches lined up neat and untouched. But one locker door at the far end stood slightly open, swaying like someone had just walked away from it. Evan frowned. No one was supposed to be here yet. He called out, but his voice echoed back at him. Something about the echo felt wrong, like it belonged to a larger room than the one he was standing in. The first disturbing sign appears. Evan walked to the open locker, expecting to find someone messing around. Instead, a single wet footprint sat on the tile floor in front of it. One print. Barefoot. Fresh. He stepped back, but when he did, the locker slammed shut hard enough to echo down the hallway. The impact rattled the entire room. Evan spun around, adrenaline spiking. "Who's there?" he shouted, but only the hum of the ceiling lights answered. He reached for the handle, pulled the locker open, and found nothing inside except a folded arena towel. The towel dripped water, even though it was bone-dry seconds earlier. The water pooled at his feet, forming a long streak across the tiles like something had been dragged. Evan followed the water trail to the shower area. The lights flickered, and the smell of damp concrete returned stronger than before. Then he heard it. A slow, shaky breath coming from the last shower stall, the one he knew was empty. Fear takes hold. Evan approached the showers with his heart pounding so hard he felt it in his teeth. The breath inside the stall grew louder, like someone struggling to inhale. He stopped just inches from the curtain. "You okay in there?" he asked, his voice barely steady. No reply. Just breathing. Evan yanked the curtain aside. The stall was empty. But the wall tiles were soaked as if someone stood there dripping minutes ago. He backed up, wiping the cold moisture from his arm. The locker room door creaked open on its own. He turned sharply, expecting a teammate. Instead, he saw a shadow stretching across the floor, long and thin, but there was no person casting it. The shadow slid along the wall, rising up the lockers like a tall figure standing beside him. Evan stumbled back, hitting the bench. The shadow twitched, then snapped away like it sprinted out of the room. Evan ran to the hallway, but it felt colder, darker, and much less safe. Doubt and isolation closed in. The arena hallways were usually bright, but half the lights overhead flickered now, leaving long alternating patches of darkness. Evan rushed toward the main court, clutching his gym bag like a shield. He started convincing himself he was overreacting. Maybe the vents were acting weird. Maybe the shadow was a trick from the flickering lights. But then his phone vibrated. A voicemail. No number. No caller ID. He played it without thinking. The message was 8 seconds of heavy breathing, the same slow, strained breathing he heard in the locker room. Evan froze. His mind locked onto one thought. Something followed him out. He looked behind him. The dark patches in the hallway seemed deeper, almost pulling inward like they were swallowing the space. The air felt thick enough to slow his breathing. He tried to call one of his teammates, but his phone screen glitched, showing distorted lines and a faint silhouette in the background that didn't belong there. The threat shows itself fully. Evan burst onto the basketball court, feeling safer under the bright arena lights. He set his bag down and went for the doors, but every exit was locked. Not normal panic locked. Jammed. As if something pushed them shut from the outside. He backed up slowly towards center court. Then the lights overhead dimmed one by one, circling the court as if something moved above them. Evan looked up, and the shadow he saw earlier crawled across the rafters. It slid along the beams like a long, lanky figure made of pure black. It dropped to the floor without sound, landing in a crouch near the free throw line. Evan froze. The figure rose slowly, stretching impossibly tall, its limbs slightly bent like a broken marionette. It tilted its head. Evan stepped backward, but the figure sprinted toward him in a blur, stopping just inches from him. He felt its cold breath on his face, though there was no mouth visible. The ending that never stops haunting. Evan ran toward the equipment room, shoving himself inside and slamming the door. He locked it, and pressed his weight against it. Outside, the figure's steps moved slow and deliberate, circling the door. The handle twitched as if something tested it. Evan backed up, grabbing a metal broom handle as a makeshift weapon. The lights in the room flickered. Then one by one, the balls on the shelf started rolling off on their own, bumping into his feet. The door suddenly stopped shaking. Everything went silent. Evan held his breath. After a full minute of quiet, he stepped forward and pressed his ear to the door. Nothing. He slowly unlocked it and pulled it open. The arena was empty. Normal. Quiet. He grabbed his bag and ran. But when he reached the exit, he noticed something that made his stomach drop. Water footprints. Bare. Human-shaped. Stretching from the locker room all the way to the equipment room door. The last footprint pointed directly at him. And it was still dripping. The runner on Dead Man's Loop. The quiet trail with a dark reputation. Dead Man's Loop got its name long before anything bad officially happened there. It was a 5-mile running trail just outside Ashford, North Carolina, winding through thick woods that blocked out most sunlight. Locals avoided it after dusk, claiming the woods felt wrong, but 29-year-old marathon trainee Leah Grant didn't believe in all that. She liked the stillness. She liked hearing only her breath and her shoes hitting the dirt. One early fall evening, she started her run later than planned. The sun dipped low behind the trees, and fog settled along the trail like a thin white sheet. Leah adjusted her earbuds, ready to push the pace. But as she took her first steps into the deeper part of the woods, she felt that odd pressure in the air. You know when someone watches you before you see them? That prickling sensation crawled up her spine. She glanced back expecting another late runner, but the trail behind her was empty. Too empty. The first disturbing sign in the woods. Half a mile in, Leah slowed down. She heard something under her music. A steady rhythm that didn't match her footsteps. She paused her playlist. The sound continued. Footsteps. But not behind her. Running parallel to her path deeper in the trees. Keeping pace. She turned toward the noise. The woods were still, fog hovering low, branches arching overhead like ribs. No one was there. Leah picked up her pace, brushing it off as a deer. But then she saw something odd. Fresh footprints in the mud ahead of her. Bare footprints. Adult-sized. Leading down the trail she was about to run. She bent down, touching one. It was ice cold. Recently made. Leah stood straight again, heart thumping. A voice whispered faintly behind her, not close but not far either. Keep going. She spun around, but the trail was empty from end to end. The woods felt too silent now, swallowing her breath like it didn't belong there. Rising fear and the presence that follows. Leah forced herself to keep running, telling herself she was being dramatic. But the moment she crossed mile 2, she knew she wasn't imagining anything. The footsteps returned, matching hers exactly now. When she slowed, they slowed, When she sprinted, they sprinted. She tried again to look into the trees, but fog curled between the trunks like something hiding behind it. Leah wiped sweat from her forehead and reached for her phone. No signal. Not even a single bar. She felt a sudden cold drift past her, brushing her shoulder like fingers. She jolted sideways. Her breath hitched. "Hello?" she called out, voice shaking. Nothing. Only the trees shifting slightly as if something had moved between them. Then her phone vibrated, one random notification. A photo. One she didn't take. It showed the back of her head. Taken only seconds earlier. Leah froze on the trail, the air thick, the fog rising around her like someone exhaling. Isolation closes in on the runner. Leah tried to scream, but her voice barely made it past her throat. She deleted the photo and started running again. Fast. Too fast. Branches whipped her arms. Her breathing turned ragged. The trail markers she passed every quarter mile were missing. She knew this path well, but now everything looked wrong. The trees seemed taller. Closer. Thicker. Like they were shifting behind her. Leah slowed, terrified she had taken a wrong turn, but the trail behind her was gone, completely swallowed by fog and darkness. She heard something drag across the ground behind her. Not footsteps now. Something heavier. Something crawling. She turned around slowly. Nothing. But she saw a shape in the fog, tall and thin, standing perfectly still. A silhouette. Facing her. She blinked and it was gone. Leah whispered to herself, "You're losing it." But she didn't believe her own voice. The woods felt alive. Watching. Waiting. The threat finally shows itself. Leah decided to cut through the woods toward the highway. It was risky, but staying on the trail felt worse. She pushed through branches, stumbling over roots until she saw headlights far away through the trees. Relief hit her like a wave. But then she heard breathing. Slow. Deep. Right above her. She looked up. Something crouched in the tree branches just 10 feet overhead. A tall, human-shaped figure, thin as bone, limbs stretched too long, head tilted at an unnatural angle. It dropped silently behind her, landing without disturbing a single leaf. Leah bolted toward the lights, screaming. The figure followed, but she didn't hear it run. It moved without sound, gliding between the trees. She tripped on a root, falling hard. When she looked back, the figure stood inches away from her, face hidden in shadow. Its breath rolled across her skin like ice. The ending that haunts the loop forever. Leah didn't remember getting up. One moment she was on the ground, the next she was sprinting blindly toward the highway. She stumbled out of the woods onto the shoulder, collapsing as a pickup truck skidded to a stop beside her. The driver jumped out yelling, asking if she was hurt. Leah pointed behind her, sobbing, trying to form words. But the woods looked normal now. Quiet. Empty. The driver shined his flashlight into the trees and didn't see anything. No figure. No footprints. Leah begged him to drive. He helped her in and sped off. As they pulled away, Leah looked out the window. A figure stood at the tree line. Tall. Thin. Perfectly still. Watching the truck leave. She blinked, and it vanished into the dark. Leah never ran Dead Man's Loop again. But every time she turns on her phone camera, she checks for photos she didn't take. And sometimes, one appears. Always from behind her. Always taken in the woods.